Content obfuscation. Creating a haystack of noise in order to hide the true needle of a situation. This term relies on individuals of the public that are misinformed and don't know where to begin their research. In today's era, our media literacy and ability to research has become much more poor, and the recent releases of these files knows that. They want you to not understand, to be overwhelmed, and to not look into it yourself. Our channel typically talks about dangerous individuals and situations that occur on online platforms, but this is decades of horrible acts that occurred through emails, videos, social media, and unfortunately in real life. I want to be very clear before we begin. What you're about to hear comes from publicly released federal court records. These documents are disturbing because they record the long-term abuse of a 16-year-old child, in her own words, and the systems that failed to protect her. This video exists for documentation, context, and preservation, and so everyday people like you and I can fully absorb a short overview of what went on in Dataset 12. Bear in mind, there are nearly 3.5 million released pages in relation to this case. 3.5 million. Really let that sink in to just how deep this goes. Over the past several weeks throughout January, a collection of files released by the U.S. Department of Justice, often referred to as part of the Epstein document releases, have been examined more closely. Among them are journal scans, legal correspondence, medical records, and lawyer emails connected to a single 16-year-old minor victim, one among many. These are not memoirs, and they are not allegations written years later. They are contemporaneous records, created while the abuse was ongoing or shortly after. The journal pages appear to have been written by a minor who did not have control over her own environment, her privacy, or the adults around her. In this journal, there's many pages that feature a very unique form of cipher to hide the content she wanted others to not know. This in of itself is horrifying. To think a child was so afraid of her environment that she had to keep even her writings a secret. The code is written in a way that you have to read it down and then diagonally, and is transcribed in documents relating to the journal. The girl uses collages and series of colors to explain the horrible abuse that occurred to her and the hurt she felt. The girl describes horrific acts of trauma, sexual assault, abuse, and forced birth. The girl also underlines specific words in the text of poems. Some of the code is written as such. Does this lady know you can't have any dignity if you've been with him? I know I have none. Only Skittles. Next to a cutout image of a magazine portion covering Ivana Trump's divorce. In another passage, it is transcribed that she wrote in her journal about a baby, as she had become pregnant against her will. She states, April 22nd, I had no choice. I wasn't ready, and she wasn't ready. My mother had found me, and it was urgent. After so many bonding moments with Jeffrey and Ghislaine, their baby inside me with me in the middle, she wouldn't even look at me. We said nothing to one another, and I was so confused. When we arrived at Palm Beach, I was taken to a house that was close to Jeffrey's, I think called Ocean Boulevard or Street. But it was close, and I was alone, except for a new driver, not Mr. Wan. An elderly French lady whose pictures on the wall didn't have her. She had a thick accent and was kind. Said she had been born to deliver babies and had been doing so before I was born. Similar as the last one, with shot and hook, much blood, and with so much water and unbearable pain. She put her hands inside of me and seemed worried. I didn't understand. Something about the baby facing the wrong way and putting pressure on a placenta? Things would have to be different. She said I had to be brave and strong and listen to her directions so she could help safely get the baby out. I was terrified, seeing so much blood on the bed and floor, and I started to panic. She had me flip over to my hands and knees and had me push and push, and it was so excruciating. I could feel everything as she tried to guide the baby out, but I was so tired. I felt I was dying, but suddenly, she'd caught a beautiful baby girl who made more than a whimper, but beautiful cries. She let me hold her, and washed her, and brought her back clean and perfect. She smelled so good, and showed me how to feed her. But only after maybe 15 minutes, Mr. M came to take her, and I was hysterical, begging for more time. He said those horrible girls were in the car waiting, but I wouldn't let her go. The old woman promised she would be safe, and I had to let go. 4 pounds, 10 ounces, 18.5 inches long, with beautiful long fingers. I am dead inside. Life has no meaning. I don't want to be here. Beyond the journal entries themselves, these files include medical and legal records that place the writings in a real-world framework, one involving doctors, attorneys, and institutional oversight. One file contains sonogram images associated with what is assumed to be the victim's baby. The identifying information has since been redacted for privacy as they left the victim's name on one of the sonograms, so you cannot find this file on the DOJ's website currently. But the medical data aligns with the time frame established in the journal entries and lawyer correspondence. The presence of this material alone indicates that the abuse had physical consequences that required medical attention. Other files include letters and emails from the victim's attorney. These communications serve many purposes. They confirm the victim's age at the time specific documents were written, they clarify the meaning of the language used in the journals, and they provide legal context for why these materials were collected and preserved. In one email, the attorney explicitly explains that certain childlike or euphemistic words used in the journals were references to sexual assault, like the word yucky, language consistent with how minors often describe experiences they do not have the vocabulary or safety to name directly. Several documents also relate to the victim's institutionalized treatment years later because of the horrible abuse she endured. These include the trauma journals written during care, as well as messages of support written by medical staff and other patients. The records demonstrate that the harm described in the original journals was not transient. It resulted in long-term psychological trauma, requiring structured treatment and supervision far into her later teen years. Also importantly, in some of these emails and the files, they also reference a named individual in connection with the alleged abuse. One of those individuals is 74-year-old American investor Leon Black. In several communications, the attorney references calls and emails regarding other girls who also alleged abuse involving the same individual. This suggests that the case was not viewed in isolation, but as part of a broader pattern being evaluated by counsel. One email discusses a photograph, allegedly taken by Maxwell, showing Jeffrey Epstein on a boat with a young girl, possibly the same victim. A large critical element in these emails is the discussion of the victim's family. According to correspondence from her lawyer, members of the family are described as having enabled the abuse, which the girl makes mention of her mother many times, including facilitating access to the child. This claim is presented as part of the legal theory of the case and is supported in part by the victim's own contemporaneous writings. As these documents were being reviewed, a concerning pattern emerged. Several files that were publicly accessible through the DOJ's database were later removed without public notice. Others remained available, but only after additional redactions. In multiple cases, the removed files now exist only because copies were preserved elsewhere, most notably on the Internet Archive, with edits made specifically to protect the victim's identity. Bear in mind that these were not leaks. These were documents that had already been released through official government channels. This lack of transparency matters, because at the same time these files were being redacted or removed, defense teams appear to have obtained information identifying the victim, despite her name not being publicly disclosed in the release records. According to later reporting and legal findings, statements from the victim's own family were introduced against her. Family members who, according to the lawyer's correspondence, were alleged to have enabled the abuse in the first place. Whether that identification occurred due to incomplete redaction, metadata exposure, or information obtained through other legal means is unknown, but the result is the same. A victim whose identity was supposed to be protected appears to have been exposed within the legal process. The journals you see show a child trying to make sense of what was happening to her in real time. The medical records show the physical and psychological consequences. The lawyer emails show years of legal struggle. They confirm ages, they translate the language, and they respond to challenges in attempting to move a case forward in a system tilted towards powerful defendants. And the removals and the redactions show how fragile public access to historical record can be. This is not about internet speculation or conspiracy. It's about documentation. What is preserved, what disappear, and who decides what stays where. When records involving powerful individuals quietly vanish, the public is left with fragments. When victims' words are stripped out of context, they become easier to dismiss. And all of the horrible things you have seen so far is just the tip of the iceberg. I'm not asking you to draw conclusions for me or anyone else. I'm asking you to look at the documents, to research yourself. There is no excuse for those that believe the dangerous individuals involved in these files did no wrong. This is a brief glimpse into the life of hell a child actually endured. Going through these files are exhausting and horrific to review. I urge you to be careful about the content you may witness when doing your own research. If you choose to engage with these materials, do so responsibly. Do not speculate about the victim's identity, and do not harass anyone mentioned. And if you have access to additional publicly released files that expand content or confirm timelines, share them carefully, with privacy and documentation in mind, with the victim in mind. If you would like a helpful research site, you should check out jmail.world. It is a compilation of Epstein's email traffic from his point of view, sorted by the individuals mentioned in the file, as well as looking at the publicly available files the DOJ has released. Before I end this video, and due to this harrowing topic, I want to make a very clear statement. I, and those on my documentary team, are very well of mine, and have never been suicidal. We are in this day and age where a statement like that has to be made. Silence allowed this harm to continue, and talking about it, and documenting it, is how we prevent it from being erased, and that is why this video exists.